Hi, and welcome to Serenity Now, a place for entrepreneurs to ask questions, learn, get connected, and be inspired. Join us as we talk about all things business and the search for the ever-elusive Serenity Now in both business and personal life. Serenity and entrepreneurship seem like polar opposites. In this episode, we chat with our panel about why they went into business.
It became the comfort of knowing my business had a soul that I was proud of.
How running a business is like raising children.
I mean, honestly, I always joke that a business is like the baby that never shuts up.
What they feel about Serenity and steps they take to get there.
Trying to get to that ever elusive serenity now, it's a challenge every single day.
I am working on finding that serenity. And for me, it's in those smaller pieces like Candace had described, where you figure out what balance and what serenity means for you and take those little snippets.
And how others' expectations can throw you off your game.
And still get this elusive balance that everybody defined as Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. And it just wasn't working, and I couldn't figure out why I couldn't get it to work. And not being able to figure it out actually causes more stress.
Maybe this is resonating with you already. If you seek serenity in entrepreneurship, this episode is for you.
Hi, welcome listeners to Serenity Now. This podcast is going to be a very unique one. We're going to talk a little bit about why Serenity Now exists. And for all of the ladies on this call, we've got someone in finance, we've got someone in marketing, definitely someone in tax credits, especially here in Canada, so important, an accountant and a lawyer. And then, of course, myself, Stephanie Sang, I'm with Granted, and we help businesses with grants. And so today, we've been hearing a lot of our partners asking us, why did we put this podcast together? And we're going to answer that question for you tonight. So let's start with some basic information about the podcast itself. Why did we put it together? I would love the input from all of these ladies on the call today. And I'm going to start with Peggy, and who is our Shred consultant and definitely someone that I've been looking up to for the last few years, ever since I've known her. Tell me, Serenity Now, so we came up with this name of Serenity Now, but what does Serenity actually mean to you as a business owner?
Well, thanks, Stephanie. Thanks for the compliment, by the way. Serenity, for me, it kind of came in fits and starts. At first, I felt serenity because I didn't have the 9 to 5. I was able to make my own time. I was able to dictate how my life would go and not have a business or a job dictate it for me. That's the first sort of level of serenity that I had being in business for myself. But later it became the comfort of knowing my business had a soul that I was proud of, a soul that was, my goal and the soul of my business was about helping companies and doing it in a way that helped me to sleep at night, and doing it in a way that I felt proud of my accomplishments, and doing it in a way that actually blended with that life of being able to pick up my kids in the morning or drop them off at school in the morning and pick them up in the evening and still balance. So I think that's where serenity was for me. And, I think that's probably not uncommon.
Love it. All right. So Rita, I mean, Serenity Now seems like, or the word serenity seems like it's opposite of what entrepreneurs and business owners would expect us to be talking about, because we're all a little crazy as entrepreneurs, aren't we? Tell me a little bit about what you think about serenity, and how that resonates with you.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And Steph, I have to agree with you. I also agree with what Peggy was saying earlier. Um, it's a conscious choice, a decision we make every day when we get up, that we choose to be business owners, and then complain all the while through the whole day about it. For some of us, as to what was I thinking and why? Why did I do this to myself? And you go back and go, there was that other corporate job that I was in, which I lived in for quite some time. And, that thing happened every 2 weeks where it was called a paycheck. The benefits, there's all this stuff that was automatically done for you and such. But at the end of the day, making that transition and deciding to do something that actually fit my lifestyle and who I was is the reason for the choice. And it kind of just boils down to what I always talk about is what are your end goals and what's your foundation look like? And my end goals were wanting to have that lifestyle. I've got 3 amazing children. I knew that they weren't going to want to hang out with me for too much longer. So I wanted to sort of be in the corner, but also grow myself. And trying to get to that ever elusive serenity now, it's a challenge every single day. I mean, even today, trying to get to our meeting was there's no way I'm going to make it. We're not going to make it, and trying to achieve it. But at the end of the day, I think it again comes down to us enjoying that journey as well. And so that serenity might not come today, it might not come tomorrow, but at the end of it, when we look back as to why I chose this lifestyle versus corporate, I do have it. I absolutely do have it. I'm very grateful for it. And also grateful for all of you ladies for being here as well with me tonight.
Awesome. I love that. I'm going to chime in a little bit on that as well as, I'm hearing already a little bit on creating a business that works with your soul, creating something that resonates with what you want for lifestyle. And I will say that was probably the biggest surprise for me, getting into business is just the number of hours that you have to work on weekends and evenings and just to find some serenity. I mean, honestly, I always joke that a business is like the baby that never shuts up. I mean, I can raise my kids and I'm a mom of 2. And, I even had a baby in the middle of growing this business. And I would take a baby, like a real live baby, sometimes over the business any day. It's like, it's fine if it poops on my hand and, it spits up and all that. I can deal with it. I can clean up the mess. But man, sometimes this business is just takes you into another level of disease or dis-ease, right? In your mind and in your emotions and sometimes even physically as well. Now, Candace, you have an interesting speak on in terms of what balance is and how kind of you were working through that yourself. So serenity and balance seem to be quite in parallel with each other. Tell me a little bit more about what your thoughts in terms of balance are in serenity.
Sure. So for me, I ended up self-employed from a very young age. So I got caught up in the whole craziness of being self-employed, and working long hours before I was doing it purposely. So I wasn't really paying attention to how much I was working, how much I was stressed out, and I actually got to a point where it was almost unmanageable. And then all of a sudden I had this epiphany. I can't remember where I heard it but it just resonated with me that because I was trying to balance my life, this crazy entrepreneurial life that I had where I was working way too many hours and trying to meet the demands of too many people, and still get this elusive balance that everybody defined as Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. And it just wasn't working and I couldn't figure out why I couldn't get it to work. And not being able to figure it out actually causes more stress. And I had this epiphany, and I think it was a webcast podcast that I was listening to, and basically they talked about balance on your own terms. So balance needs to be balanced for you, which means that maybe you work 2 10-hour days and 3 5-hour days, or you work crazy hours for 4 months of the year and then you take 2 months off in the summer. Maybe that's what balance means to you. So when I realized that I could step back from my business, maybe say no to a few people. I didn't have to take on everything for everybody, and purposely figure out what balance meant to me and then go after that balance. That's when I started to feel serenity, I guess. And it was about, and it's not about the destination. There's no destination called serenity. It's a journey definitely it's a journey. Some days it's a smooth path, and sometimes it's a rocky trail. But I think if you're always focused on trying to make that work within your life rather than somebody else's life, that you'll get there closer and closer every day, and you'll have more good days than bad days. So
Yeah, I love that. And I'm now going to go to our lawyer in the group before we go to our marketer in the group. And Kathleen, there's some changes that have happened with you in the last little while. And so trying to find this serenity for yourself. Tell us a little bit about what serenity means to you.
Sure, thanks, Stephanie. Yeah, I certainly echo my colleagues in their definition of serenity, and it's finding that peace and that balance. And for me, maybe I'd add some focus. But interestingly, I'm not. I'm still somewhere along my journey. As Candace pointed out, it's not necessarily an end goal, but it is a journey to get there. So the practice of law, it doesn't typically conjure up images of a restful career. And one of the things that made me nervous in law school was getting that downtown city lawyer job, and was I going to ever find that sort of peace and balance in my life if I took one of those high-paced, really demanding sort of traditional law careers. And that's what got me into this entrepreneurial track of having my own practice, and then later joining in with a firm where I'm the managing partner. But clearly there's part of me who just needed more, and I took on another business completely unrelated to my law firm, which has of course added now another layer of complexity to my life and busyness, and so like I said at the outset, I am working on finding that serenity, and for me it's in those smaller pieces like Candace had described, where you figure out what balance and what serenity means for you, and take those little snippets when you can.
Yeah, it's really odd to me that those who go into a business go and do another one. It's very odd. And I think there's so many of us on this call right now just kind of going, oh yeah, that's me too. Why does that happen? So there's no better person to tell us the answer but Nina. Because how many businesses do you run? Tell us more.
I have 3 businesses, but that's not how many I've started over 20 years. So I've started many businesses over the last few years. Some have sold, some have closed. And I think I just love it. And what serenity means to me is just following your passion, because part of it is freedom. Part of it is just doing whatever you want to do. I love creating a business. I love doing a startup. I love having something created where there was once nothing. I love having a business that helps other people and gives back. I love the freedom it gives me to do whatever I want to do. If it's a sunny day, and I mean, we don't get to do this often, but if it's a sunny day and I don't feel like working, I don't have to. And that's part of the freedom in it. And I love that. I love not having somebody not tell me like, okay, you have 4 weeks vacation. Well, when you have a business, sometimes you don't get any vacation, or sometimes you have your laptop on your vacation. But like Candace said, it's whatever you define it. And I think that's what I love about being an entrepreneur, is I get to define my life. There's nobody telling me, I'm not following society's norms of this is what you should do, here's your career, blah, 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 pick and choose what you want. I want to be a Renaissance woman. I want to do it all. Why should I do one thing? I want to be a painter, a poet. I don't do any of those things, but whatever it is I choose to do in my business, that's what I want to do. I want to be able to define it. And serenity is ever elusive. I believe that. You attain it sometimes, you lose it sometimes within minutes, sometimes the same day, sometimes the next week. And part of being an entrepreneur is you have those days where you're like, I'm a genius. I'm in charge. Look what I created. And then the next day is like, who put me in charge? Why am I in charge? This is not safe. But it's fun. It's freedom, and it's creating your own balance. in creating what your definition of serenity is. That's what it is for me.
I love it. We're going to jump into the next question now, which is why serenity now? Now, right? Because we're coming out of a pandemic. Like a lot of us are refocusing our businesses, and then we decide to take this on an evening once a week to kind of share a perspective on stuff. So, what drove you to join this, and what do you think the business world needs right now? I'm going to start with Rita. Tell us.
I love how you always just throw us on the spot there, Stephanie. Just so everybody knows, none of us have a clue of who she goes to next. So she's the one we're all afraid of. Uh, so going to your question about why now and how did this happen and why would we add more to the plate during such a time? I guess it just boiled down to one summer day last year after, the COVID started. And we had the opportunity to all gather together at Peggy's house. And she was wonderful and let us come in and enjoy a moment together. And, one of us was feeling it, one of those days where you just were not feeling the serenity. And the rest of us women did what we do best, which is, we let everything else fall away. All the problems were gone. And we just had a new focus because that's what we do is we focus on our partners and our colleagues. And she had a problem and we just started saying, let's define it. Let's work on this. Let's figure it out. Uh, and it was just one after the other and our partner took it so well, but I think it was just something that you need to hear sometimes as the CEO. It's tough. Who do you bounce it off of? Who do you walk to? Who do you tell? Who do you share? Because you're supposed to know it all, right? Every day, all day, and never have a bad day or a bad moment. And the idea of coming together with amazing women who love business, who take care of their clients in a way that I haven't seen before at a level that just, like we've been talking about, you get a chance to give back, help others, do what you do best, and you're enjoying it. You get to pick and choose your clients. And we had a brilliant moment with some good wine and some cider, thank you, uh, and some amazing food. And we realized because we've all been so kind of involved in our lives and our business and helping others, we never had that moment. And because of everything that happened with COVID, we couldn't see each other. So that moment was very defining, and I didn't want to lose that moment. So I kept bugging everyone to say hi again. And somehow everybody kept saying hi, and it just transitioned into this beautiful piece that we get to see each other and talk to each other once a week. It's a place to give back. We share knowledge. We share stories. We get to connect with other entrepreneurs. I get inspired every single time by the entrepreneurs that come on board, and we have a chance to help them. But I also get inspired usually with their youth and passion and energy. I also get inspired by my colleagues. You ladies are amazing, and we do laugh. We make fun of each other. We have a good laugh. We fall down, and it's a brilliant moment. So why now? It's time. We have the ability to do it. We have the ability to give back. We've built successful businesses and we want to. And this is just a pure piece of joy in my life. This is my happy.
Yeah, I'm going to jump in there a little bit because I was also there that evening. And what's really interesting is, you're taught for me anyway, as a minority female entrepreneur, that you have to have all the answers and you can't show this vulnerable side of yourself to other people, because then they'll think you don't know what you're talking about. They don't think that you're top of the game. And so you don't want that piece of vulnerability. And I think what I learned from being vulnerable is that everybody had a story for me in terms of, things that I was going through during that evening or before that evening, and how were they overcoming it. And so we just shared. And so I feel that Serenity now is a little bit of a play on the fact that entrepreneurs really strive for this serenity, but at the same time they go and start new businesses, or they do podcasts, or they write books, or they do blogs. And it's because we want to give back. It's because we feel like it's not just the standard business learning that you get from an MBA or from business school or from the School of Hard Knocks. It really is more encompassing than that. So I'm going to go to Candace next and just go, what are your thoughts on Serenity Now, the timing of it, or the impact that we want to be able to share with others?
So I kind of joined a little bit after the eventful evening, but I really wish I was there because it sounded like a lot of fun. Even though there was some stressful things being dealt with, it sounded like a really good evening where there was a lot of camaraderie. But I feel that every time we get together each week, I and I feel almost as lucky as the people that we bring onto the podcast. So we bring these folks onto the podcast, they get to ask questions, they get a sounding board, they get probably like a fire hose worth of information shot at them. But I feel like I'm getting just as much out of it as they are. So when you can spend your time and it's that much fun, and the camaraderie is there, and it's not judgmental, and it's about figuring out who you are and helping others figure out who they are and find their way in the business world. I mean, it's my favorite time of the week. Every Tuesday is just my favorite time of the week. So
I love it. Peggy, tell us more. Tell us why Serenity Now for you, because you've started a business, you've sold a business, you're back in business, what Serenity Now?
Well, Steph, I want to just go back to that wonderful evening on my deck. I put an invite out to you ladies to come and join me because I've known you. Well, Reed, I've known for 10 years, and Stephanie 5 years, and others, a little less, but admired all you ladies, and I was craving intellectual conversation. I hadn't seen anybody. I hadn't had a conversation with my good friends because of COVID. And we had that little window where we were allowed to have people in our homes, although we sat outside, but it was still those small gatherings we were allowed to have. And you came. And I was thrilled that I could get these busy ladies all together on my deck for an evening. I was thrilled. So why did we get here? I think we talked about a book, but realized very quickly in the process that we all had stories. We all had great things to offer. We didn't have these when we were going through our young careers or entrepreneurial experiences. We had to figure them out. So for me, just realizing in the digital age and and COVID especially, I've seen so many casual performances on TV, including Zoom calls and podcasts with all kinds of flaws and bad static and this, that. And I realized we don't have to be perfect. We don't have to have a perfect professional performance in order to get our message across. We just need to talk. We need to do what we did that night on the deck, because I think everybody went home feeling like they just had a good appointment at a psychiatrist. It was one of those evenings where I invited you guys for a couple hours and you stayed till midnight. So as you can imagine, the conversation covered a lot of different things, and it was so freeing for all of us. And we realized we are our best helpers. We are the ones who are best for each other, because as Stephanie had mentioned, who else do we have when you're the CEO? You can't talk to your employees. You can't talk to your husband, at least not at the level. When my husband works in a hospital, we have very different worlds. We talk, but I don't understand his world and he doesn't understand mine. And then at times I feel like, we have a different way of thinking than some of our male colleagues at the same levels. So we are, I think, our best helpers. And that night we realized it. And then it slowly evolved. And of course, when you get this many type A women in a room, something's going to happen. So here we are having this podcast, and I agree with Candace. It's always uplifting. It's always feels so good. And when we had our young composting ladies on, it was just such a good feeling when their feedback came back, how we helped them. There's nothing better than that. We all know that.
Yeah,
So
love that.
That's why I'm here.
And I'll go to Nina. We'll do it the other way around now. So Nina, tell me a little bit about, the impact of Serenity Now at a time, as mentioned, just coming out of this COVID pandemic, or we're kind of still in it, unfortunately. But tell us a little bit about your thoughts on that.
COVID really played a big part in this because we don't have networking events anymore. We don't have trade shows. We aren't getting together for coffee. There was a lot of limited contact. Meanwhile, we're in our networks, we're seeing a lot of businesses having to pivot, not doing so well, taking huge hits, whether it's the event industry or hospitality, tourism. I mean, there's so many industries that have been hit really, really hard. And I think any opportunity to help in any way, to allow people to feel connected, to say, it's okay, here's something we've tried, here's some advice we can give. But I think sometimes when you're part of a group, when you're speaking to someone, even in this group, that feeling of knowing, hey, the person next to me is going through the same thing as me, it helps you. And like someone said, it's like therapy, right? And so that part of like, what can we do to help other businesses, for me was, if we can give some knowledge, if we can help in some way, and it prevents a company from closing, or it helps a company pivot in some way. And even the startups that, are starting right now, if we can share our knowledge in some way, that'd be great. Also, I can't start any more businesses right now. So if I can share my knowledge with anybody and be a small part of helping them in some way, then that's fantastic. And like Rita was saying too, and Peggy and Candace were saying, you get inspired too. When you reach out a helping hand, I mean, how much do you get back in return? And that's the same way. So, and I think that's why maybe we will write a book one day, but we don't have that immediate satisfaction of talking to the reader, which we do in this format, which is quite amazing to hear people say, oh, I didn't think of that. And oh, that's really helpful. And that feels good to lend a helping hand. And everyone we've had on the podcast, I've had to try to stop myself from writing a huge email with all of my advice that I want to give them, because it would be unsolicited. And so maybe they don't want it, but if they reach out, I have a lot to say. So.
Good. Yeah. And what I love also about the variety that we have in this group is there's an area that I've been fighting off like the plague, which is law. And we've got Kathleen on. And every time we do a podcast, there's just some really important insights to make sure that people have the right legal step forward. And so, Kathleen, tell us a little bit about what Serenity Now means to you, and why are you involved in this?
Okay, thanks, Steph. Yeah, like Candace, I wasn't at the pool party. I came on shortly after, and I was told I was joining this group of amazing women, amazing business women, and that my presence was required. And I tried to leave once, but because of who this group is, I couldn't get away with that, because you can't tell these people that you're too busy, because everybody's too busy. So in the end, I stayed for a couple of reasons, and one's selfish and one's altruistic. And the selfish reason is the same as, I echo what a lot of folks have said tonight, is that I learn something every single night that we get together. It's also a very supportive group. Although we come from all different backgrounds and different industries, there's such a commonality between everyone who runs their own business that, it is that therapy that's been mentioned a couple of times. And then the altruistic side, I just think that law is such a daunting thing for a lot of entrepreneurs. And when you've got a tight budget to start up, the last thing you want to do is spend money on legal fees, but there's just so many steps you can take early on in a business that set you up for success in the future. And there's, pitfalls if you don't get that legal advice at the beginning. So, I'm hoping that this platform gives me a chance to give some of those little nuggets of legal direction, even if it's just nudging an entrepreneur to go, hire a lawyer, get that contract in place, get that shareholder agreement in place, get that company set up properly from the get-go. I think it can save people some time and headache in the future.
Okay, excellent. So, I think that just summarizing, I was just taking some notes in terms of what everyone said, because we continually learn from each other. Is what I heard tonight was Serenity is creating a business that has a soul that works with what aligns value-wise to what you believe in. The importance of checking in on balance, and also that the business was a conscious choice. As a business owner, it usually isn't one that you just kind of necessarily fall into, although that can happen as well. And then just finding balance on your own terms and taking on, this extra layer of Serenity Now is really to learn from each other, a little bit of therapy for each of us, and also to help others set up for success. And so I wanted to thank all you ladies, Peggy, Candace, Kathleen, Nina, Rita, and myself, Stephanie. We are so blessed to be able to have the opportunity to kind of share our wisdom, or our failures, I will also say, with everyone. In today's podcast, you also heard a little bit about the word foundation. And so when we first started talking about Serenity Now, we also talked about building a business was like building a house, or it is like building a house. You need to have a strong foundation. You have to have certain rooms and certain functions in this house. And obviously you need to have a roof over your head to protect yourself. And so in our next podcast, we're going to be chatting about that. So we welcome you to join us on our next podcast. Where we will explore how Serenity Now is really talking about building that foundation for your business. All right, until next time, thank you, everybody.
We hope you enjoyed this episode and picked up some good tips and best practices that would benefit your entrepreneurial journey. Remember, none of the content in this podcast should be relied upon as standard legal or business advice. Always consult a professional for your specific business. You may know someone who could benefit from this podcast. Please share it with your business community, and perhaps it can give an entrepreneur some serenity now.